Some of us are pet lovers. I remember as a kid always having a pet in the house when I was growing up. And we must have been pretty good at taking care of these pets because there was a cat who lived down the street in a home that had many other pets who tried and actually did move in with us. In fact, one time this cat was trying to get in our front door, and my grandmother, who lived with us at the time, she picked up this cat, tossed him out into the front yard, turned in, went through the screen door, came in the house, and by the time she had shut the front door, there was the cat sitting inside our house because he really wanted to be in our house. So yes, we did enjoy our pets. We took care of them. They were special to us, and it was always sad when one of the pets passed away. Always made everyone in the family very sad, and if you're a pet lover, then you've experienced the sadness of losing a pet before as well. Well, the Bible has some pet stories in it too. In fact, there's a really neat pet story in the Old Testament. And it's really an Old Testament parable that's told. And it goes something like this. There was a certain town that had a rich man and a poor man. And the rich man had plenty of cattle and sheep, and he had all kinds of livestock. He was very wealthy. He was not lacking in anything. And then there was the poor man. The poor man barely had enough to get by. He scraped together some money and he bought this cute little ewe lamb. And this little lamb, he grew up with them, and he was more than just a farm animal. He was their pet. He would come in the house with them, they'd feed him, they'd hold him, they'd pet him, he'd sleep with the guy's kids. They just loved this little lamb. He was their precious pet. And as the story unfolds, we find out that the rich man is hosting a special guest. A traveler's coming through. The rich man probably wasn't expecting him, but showing good hospitality, he welcomed him in, but he didn't want to sacrifice any of his own animals to take care of his guest. So he looked over across the fence and saw his neighbor's, the poor man's, pet lamb out in the yard. And he snuck over there and he grabbed that lamb and he prepared that lamb for dinner for his guest. You can imagine how sad it must have been for that poor man when he found out that his little lamb had been stolen from him. But to get the full context of this story, and yes, it does end sadly like that. To get the full context of the story, though, we need to understand that this story was actually told by the prophet Nathan to King David. And when the prophet told this story to King David was angry. He was upset. He could not believe that anyone would be so cruel like that bully of a rich man to take that poor man's pet lamb and kill it for his own selfish desires to not have to kill one of his own when he already had plenty. David was incensed. He was beside himself with anger. In fact, David's response is that this man, the man who did this, deserves to die. He must pay for the lamb 4 times over because he did such a thing and had no pity. And then Nathan told David the shocking news. Nathan said, David, you are the man. You're the man. What was Nathan referring to? Well, David had done something pretty bad himself. In fact, when he was supposed to be leading his soldiers out to war in the spring, instead he decided to take it easy. And he was going for a rooftop stroll when he saw one of his soldiers' wives taking a bath on her rooftop. And David, in a fit of, I was going to say passion, but actually in a fit of lust, he had his soldier's wife brought to the palace, and he slept with her while his soldier was out fighting for his country. He slept with the soldier's wife. David had acted just like the bully of a rich man in the parable that Nathan told to David. And there's some lessons for us, because we too, like that rich man, we too can be tempted to take advantage of those who are less powerful or less fortunate than we are. And the scripture says that's a really bad thing. And we also need to learn that when we go outside God's will to fulfill our desires, we communicate a lack of trust in God and ungratefulness for what He's already given us. When that rich man took that little lamb, he was showing a lack of gratefulness for all the cattle that he already had. And David's already king of the land. He already has a wife, if not wives. He wasn't trusting God to meet his needs. And we can be that way too. And there actually is a final lesson in the story. Nathan would share with David that there were going to be serious consequences as a result of his sin. That his family was going to experience some conflict and strife because of what he had done. Because of how the poor choices that he had made. And the final lesson for us is that sin can cost us dearly. Certainly cost the poor man his cute little pet. But in David's case, if you read in the book of 2 Samuel, chapters 11 and 12 and on, you'll see all the turmoil that took place in David's household as a result of his poor choices. Hopefully we can learn a lesson from this pet story, and our own stories can have happier endings. That's the story for today.